was at a conference in December and I just like walked around with a microphone and I was like, hey, did you know that fertility rates are massively on a decline? What do you think is the cause? And almost like 99% of people, the doctors at this conference, answered with yes, and it's because of the toxins.
Do you want to wake up feeling like you're stepping into who you're meant to be, into the best possible version of you? What if I told you that the key to your best life, health, and happiness are all around you? You just have to find what works for you. I'm Hope Pedraza, and I believe that there isn't just one way to live a healthy and meaningful life, and that all you need is a little inspiration to make changes that last from the inside out. Each week, I'll be sharing tangible tips and inspirational interviews to help you on your journey. These are the steps to take to improve your life and live with purpose. This is Hopeful and Wholesome. Hey y'all, welcome back to Hopeful and Wholesome. Today I have on the show Dr. Aumatma, and she is a double board certified naturopathic doctor and endocrinologist in practice for close to 15 years. She specializes in fertility, is the best-selling author of 2 books, has won multiple awards, including Best Naturopathic Medicine Doctor. And needless to say, this woman knows a thing or two about hormones and fertility, and that is her specialty. And that's what we're talking about today. We're talking about holistic fertility, but we're talking about it in a way that we haven't really talked about on the show in terms of specific chronic issues that are typically linked to infertility, why this is the case, and what we can do about it. So things like PCOS, endometriosis, blood sugar dysregulation, estrogen dominance, all the things that can be really common for women that can really affect fertility, but how we can actually do something about it. So if you or anyone you know is dealing with any of these things and has been told, like, basically your only option is IVF, or basically you're not going to get pregnant, this is the episode to send them. Dr. Aumatma is going to give us a lot of insight on how to navigate these things and really what the real root cause looks like and the real reason for fertility issues and so many of these kind of root cause hormonal issues that women deal with. So let's jump in. All right, y'all, let's jump in. I'm here with Dr. Aumatma, and we are talking about fertility and getting a little specific today. I know we've talked about infertility and fertility. I mean, I guess fertility and fertility, they go together. We've talked about these before and kind of, holistic approaches to it and talking about the fertility awareness method and these things. But I wanted to get down to like the nitty gritty. And since Dr. Aumatma is a naturopathic doctor, she can help us get into the nitty gritty of some of the chronic things that are affecting fertility. So thanks so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Hope. It's great to be here.
Yes. And so Dr. Aumatma also has, and she'll mention this, but she also has her own podcast, Egg Meets Sperm. And so we're doing a little swap-a-roo. So I'm excited for her to bring her insight on the Hopeful and Wholesome podcast. So here we are.
Yeah.
Okay. So I guess I want to start with, actually, I'd love to start with your story and how you got into naturopathic medicine and what specifically brought you into helping with infertility.
Fertility. Yeah. So I'll try to keep it brief because the story gets so long. But the short version is that I was groomed to be a doctor. Like my whole family was like, oh, you're going to be a doctor. You're going to be a doctor. And my dad believed in astrology. So he was like, oh, I've seen the stars, like that kind of thing. And so I went to pre-med. I hated it. I literally I was like, I don't see how we can separate the body from the mind and spirit, right? And that was my biggest thing. And I kept asking advisors, like, why doesn't this make sense? Like, how do we merge the 3 together? And they were like, you're a hippie. You need to move to California.
Get out of this pre-med thing.
Yeah. And so I was like, okay. And then I was about to graduate from undergrad, not knowing where I was going next, what I was doing next, a month from graduation essentially, and I got a pamphlet in the mail at my parents' house that they would have normally thrown away that said body, mind, spirit on the cover. And I was like, stop playing. What is this? Like, rip it open. And it was naturopathic school. And like literally everything that I had been talking about and asking for years in a
It's right
pamphlet.
there.
And I
Yeah.
was like, oh my God, I have to do this. So, like, instantly, I was like, I'm going to naturopathic medical school. Aren't you glad I'll be a doctor? And
Yeah.
my parents were like, no, we're not. Like, we want you to be a real doctor.
Oh my
So
gosh.
that was lots of fun. And then they came around eventually.
Well, that's good. That's good.
And then fertility, I was actually married to this man who wanted to have children and like literally could hear my body and specifically my uterus screaming, no,
Mhm.
every time he would talk about babies. And I was like, oh shit, I think I married the wrong person.
Oh my,
Or
that's
maybe
probably a
I
good
never
sign.
want to
When your
have
uterus is
children.
screaming no, probably a good sign.
Yeah. Yeah. So I kind of like went down a rabbit hole and went into deep into fertility research because I was like, well, if I'm gonna leave, then does that mean I'll never have kids because
Right.
I'm getting to that age? And what does that mean? So I kind of went down this rabbit hole and came out on the other side, like just irate that I had been lied to for my entire life. But in general, like we're all women are being lied to about our fertility, about our bodies, about what's possible. So I just, I didn't really think this was going to be a niche. Like I just kind of started talking about it and all of my friends were like, wait, why the hell don't we know that? And like getting up in arms and I was like, whoa, everyone's having the same reaction. What's happening
Yes.
here?
Yes.
So then it was soon after that people just kept coming up to me like, oh, I heard you talk about this. Can you help me have baby? I'm like, all my stuff is theoretical. Like, I've never actually helped anyone. It's just a theory.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they're like, that's okay. We're willing to try. We'll try anything. And so I started working with these women and couples, and I was like, wow, it's amazing because not only are these women people that have tried for years and years, can't get pregnant, they've tried IVF, they've tried the conventional options that were given to them, and they're
Hmm.
still getting pregnant in like 4 to 6 months.
Mm.
And that's when I was like, wow, this is amazing. And
Hmm.
I think that we have naturopathic medicine in general, but specifically like focused fertility support is so essential and helpful in people's journeys and can really compress time for something that's so time sensitive to
Right.
begin
Right.
with.
Right.
So, yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's what makes it such a tricky subject because it is time sensitive. And while you want to be like, oh, let's give the body time to like, you really don't have all the time in the world for this. Like this is something where you don't know, like me, normally when I'm working with women, it's like, oh, we work on the body's timeline where we're healing chronic things. But the fertility thing is that's a touchy thing because there's a window, like there's a window of time. So
Yeah.
when you started working with your clients and you started recognizing like, oh, okay, this stuff is working, what did you find? I know it's going to be like nuanced depending on
Mhm.
clients and stuff.
Yeah.
But what did you find were the biggest things, or the things that made the biggest difference for people to kind of flip the coin?
I think one of the things that I would say is really understanding what's happening under the surface, right?
Hmm.
So I think like so much of fertility is focused on the hormones. And when we're talking about hormones, we're specifically talking about estrogen, progesterone, LH, FSH, like the basic fertility hormones.
Right.
But our hormones, our fertility or reproductive hormones are not in a silo from all the other
Hmm.
hormones in our body.
Right.
So when we really look at it from the context of what's happening with your gut, how does that affect your hormones? What's happening in your pituitary? How does that affect your hormones? What's happening with the communication and feedback loops that are not working the way that they should? How does blood sugar influence
Hmm.
fertility? So just kind of broadening that concept of reproduction is not just about reproduction, but it's
Right.
the reflection of everything else in our bodies.
Yeah.
It really helps to flip the script in terms of how we approach it, how we even go about thinking about what's going on with someone's fertility journey.
Hmm.
And then once we see that big picture, then we can say, okay, let's figure out what is the priority. Like,
Right.
what is the things that you're going to do based on what we understand about your body, the things that you're going to do that are going to make the biggest difference.
Hmm.
right? And I call it ROI. It's like a really cost benefits ratio in terms
Yeah.
of like, if I give you this supplement, will we move the needle forward, or is
Right.
it going to be like a nice to have? And I tend to want the things that are the highest ROI and the lowest hanging fruit, in the sense of like, if you do this one little thing, which is going to take 2 minutes, it's going to make a huge difference.
Right.
That's a really good thing for you to do.
Yes. Yeah, totally. Well, and I think you're to your point of, recognizing that your fertility hormones like don't work independently from everything else. I mean, that's the beauty of naturopathic medicine too, right? We're just like what you were saying, where you're like the issue with modern medicine that you had when and pre-med was like, why are we separating all these things? And I think that's the thing that keeps women stuck, where they're going to traditional medicine routes, and it's like they are separating, like they're only looking at fertility, where it's like, hold on, like this is working in like this multifaceted like thing that is our body. So I think
Totally.
that's a huge piece of it. So you mentioned blood sugar, and that was actually one of the ones I wanted to ask you about, because I know, like, I had a guest on a couple months ago, and he works a lot with like blood sugar and chronic disease and stuff and autoimmune, that kind
Mm,
of thing. And I know the blood sugar conversation is, I feel like, and maybe it's the bubble I live in. I always say that. I feel like I'm like, oh yeah, we're talking about this a lot. And maybe it's just me saying it all the time, but I feel like we're talking about blood sugar a lot and recognizing, the effects of dysregulated blood sugar. Because so let's start there. And what can just your thoughts on how blood sugar is affecting fertility?
I'll do the three big ones. It's shown to directly affect ovulation.
Mm,
So if your blood sugar is dysregulated, it's going to have an impact on ovulating too early, too late, not frequently enough. So it can throw off in all different kinds of ways. It's not always predictable how it happens. So that's the first one. The second one is a little more nuanced, in that we understand that blood sugar, or more sugar floating around in our body, in our cells, is going to coat the cells with this, like, it's essentially glycation, right? It's this, a very simplified way of saying, a layer of sugar around your cells.
mhm,
And that layer of sugar causes more oxidation. So when we think about, most people in the fertility world are like, antioxidants, antioxidants, antioxidants. But if you have a high burden, meaning you have more oxidative stress than your body can handle, you're going to need loads and loads of antioxidants, but they're just neutralizing what your body's doing. They're
mhm,
not actually like moving the needle forward.
mhm. It's not
So,
actually healing the thing.
yeah. So that's a big one. And the third is something that is even more nuanced, which is blood sugar dysregulation is our body's internal signal that we are not safe. We don't have enough
Mhm,
food to eat. We need to go find food, right? Survival. It puts us
mhm,
directly into survival mode. And fertility only happens when we're in reproduction mode, not
mhm.
in survival mode.
Yep.
So they're two very opposite signals. So if the body is in starvation mode, or is the body is in a roller coaster ride of, I have enough, or I have too much and too little, too much and too little, it's not stable, then it's not safe to
Mhm,
reproduce. So
mhm,
anytime we are put into survival mode, that happens with stress, it happens with blood sugar. There's so many things that can put us into that mode, but the things that put us in survival mode are always pulling us out of reproductive mode.
mhm. Yeah, no, that's a big one. And I think like putting that together with the blood sugar part is a huge one. Because I mean, we've talked about that on the show before too, where it's like when you're in the fight or flight mode or the stress mode, whatever, like the last thing your body's doing is thinking about making a baby. Like, why would that be top of their priority list when it's just trying to keep you safe? But I do like you bringing that together with the blood sugar thing and connecting, because that's essentially the same feeling in the body that it has when your blood sugar is dysregulated all over the place. That's really good. So what about, things like PCOS and endometriosis are really common, and so what can you say about that and just how those are affecting fertility.
Yeah, those are big ones.
Hmm.
1 in 2 women with PCOS and 1 in 3 with endometriosis is going to have struggles with fertility. So
Wow.
those two tend to be some of the biggest factors causing fertility struggle. PCOS is very complex. We can spend 2 hours just
So true.
breaking down PCOS.
Hmm.
It's there is a degree of inflammation, it's a degree of hormone dysregulation, blood sugar imbalance, and they're all often interacting with each other. So it's not like, oh, you just have this one thing. It's
Right.
they're all kind of contributing to this scenario where fertility is a lot harder.
Hmm.
What we see is often anovulation or delayed ovulation. And I've heard a lot of my colleagues in the fertility world say, oh, it doesn't matter as long as you're ovulating, as long as
Right.
you have a 10 to 14-day cycle. And I'm like, well, if you think about what's happening with the eggs when they're developing in the ovaries, it's sort of like leaving your soup on the pot, in the pot for way longer than it should be. And the bottom is all stuck together.
Hmm.
It's not a good soup, right? It's burnt.
Yep.
So if we're cooking the eggs or we're like making the eggs as they develop, sitting them in your ovaries for 3, 5, 10 days longer than they should,
Right.
is usually going to lead to poorer quality eggs.
That makes sense. That's a great analogy.
So I really think that with ovulation, and so many people are focused on like, how do I get myself to ovulate? And I'm like, yeah, that's a good first step because that'll get you cycling. But we want to get you to a point where you're ovulating within a reasonable range of days so that the eggs are not cooking for too long.
Right, 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 right. Yeah, because I think that's something we think about. Like ovulation is one thing, but there's like the quality of the eggs matters. And I think that's the other thing. And I think sometimes we skip over that part and I don't know, I just feel like a lot of times we're not thinking about like the actual quality of the eggs that you're making. Yeah.
And I think that that's partly why even when women with PCOS have worked on their hormones,
Right.
they're ovulating, they're cycling, they're doing all the things, but the risk of pregnancy loss in women with PCOS is still pretty high.
Hmm.
And I believe the reason is because we started with poor quality eggs.
Hmm.
So if we can get them to regulate to the point where they're ovulating more optimally, then the quality of eggs goes up, then we have the possibility of creating a healthier pregnancy outcome
Hmm.
from the beginning rather than taking our chances and like throwing the dice and seeing where it falls.
Right. What does that look like for somebody with just PCOS, since we're talking about that, for somebody where you're trying to improve the quality of the egg?
Mm.
What is that? What are some things that you're looking at?
Well, so there are 2 or 3 things that are the most studied for PCOS and egg quality. One is myoinositol, and it's a specific like dichiro to myoinositol that is most well studied for optimizing ovulation so getting PCOS women to ovulate, getting them to cycle more regularly, and been shown to support the quality of eggs in women with PCOS and not in women with sorry, I should say with women that don't have PCOS also. So myoinositol tends to be at the top of my list. In addition to that, NAC is a really good one. N-acetylcysteine,
Hmm.
well studied for egg quality, supporting egg quality in women with PCOS. And then things that I would add into that mix are going to be things like selenium, zinc, chromium. They're minerals that are going to help optimize the development of these eggs in the ovaries.
Hmm.
So, yes, they can help everybody, but with women, specifically PCOS women, it's very helpful to optimize it from the perspective of which do you have mineral deficiencies?
Hmm.
If you do, let's address those first. And let's optimize from the perspective of giving your body what it needs to put out the best quality eggs that it can.
Yeah. You're speaking my language when you're talking minerals. You know that. So I'm like, yes, check the minerals. Yes. Okay. Another one that's super common, and this is even when we're not talking about fertility, just common, just in general, because I work with this all the time, is estrogen dominance. I know
Yes.
this is at the top of the list a lot of times. So what are your thoughts on that? Just how that is affecting fertility?
Well, estrogen is actually, I feel like estrogen gets a bad rap a lot of
It's true.
times.
It's very true.
So we need estrogen. We don't want to get rid of all of our
Yeah.
estrogen, right? Like,
You're too far on the other end of the spectrum.
right.
There's a happy middle.
There's a happy middle. And estrogen dominance is really specific to when there's progesterone that's supposed to be present in our body, and that progesterone is lower than optimal, or estrogen is way higher than it should be, that it really becomes a problem. And I believe the reason is progesterone is progestation, right? Like that's what that hormone is for. That's what it does. It supports progestation or making a baby.
Hmm.
And the first 2 weeks of post ovulation, those 2 weeks after ovulation, are really crucial to having a dominance of progesterone over estrogen.
Right.
Often, I think women assume that if you are estrogen dominant, it means you have too much estrogen, not enough progesterone.
Right.
You're either, the approach is either get rid of estrogen or supplement progesterone.
Right.
I always take a step back and I say, okay, what makes progesterone, right? If progesterone is made by the shell of the egg that was released in that cycle, it's a direct reflection of the quality of that egg.
Hmm.
So again, we go back to how do we optimize egg quality so that the body makes the progesterone? The other piece of it is if we willy-nilly kind of get rid of estrogen without knowing whether or not it's actually so crazy high or if it's just like body's not making enough progesterone. I've seen
Right.
women with like flat lines. Estrogen and progesterone are flat line,
Hmm.
but they're considered estrogen dominant and they have all of the estrogen symptoms
Right.
because estrogen is like a smidge above progesterone,
Hmm.
right? It's like a minor difference. And in those cases, giving women the things that help to excrete estrogen is actually the wrong move.
Right. Because they don't have any to begin with.
They don't have any to begin with. So in that case, we really need to build up progesterone first. And then even we will give herbs that will support the building of estrogen in these women because you do need that that rise in estrogen in the luteal phase
Right.
to support a healthy pregnancy.
Right.
Estrogen is essentially anabolic hormone in the body. So in order to make cells to make a human, you need the estrogen. And if
Hmm.
you don't have that signal happening, it's going to be really hard to make a human.
Hmm.
So I think we just need to think about like how do we support the body to optimization rather than is it truly too much estrogen, which is
Hmm.
the rarest of the cases,
Right.
honestly.
Right. Yeah, I agree.
And the other piece of it is like often when estrogen is high, it's more about is the body excreting and
Hmm.
metabolizing it the way that it should?
Right.
Is the gut doing its job?
Hmm.
Are there the right microbes that help to move that estrogen out of the system? So there are so many other factors that have to do with estrogen than the actual like, oh, you have too much estrogen,
Yeah,
right?
I agree. Yeah, I think I agree with everything you're saying because I think so much. I was just talking to a friend of mine actually about this because I think we oversimplify the estrogen dominance thing.
Mhm.
And it been as because she was asking, like, well, if I have estrogen dominance, like I have all the signs, then like, yeah, I say, well, should I just take something to blah blah blah? I'm like, well, wait, like you don't even know why you have that in the first place. And first of all, I don't know if that's really what it is until, I'm all about the labs. Like, let's not guess about it. But I do think we oversimplify it because there's multiple factors at play. And like you said, it's not all about well, do you just have too much estrogen? Or yeah, I just think it's an oversimplification of, and then if you're just addressing the hormone side of it, like you said, there's the gut part of, like, there's so many other things that could be. So you're leaving out important pieces.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Do you, I just like to get experts' thoughts. So this is totally your opinion, but I mean, you work with fertility and those who are struggling with fertility. What do you think, just in the world we live in, what do you think are the biggest reasons? And I know you have, like, just based on specific cases, but just generally speaking, like, why do you think infertility is such an issue today? That's a
That's a
big
great
question. So
question.
answer it how you want
Yeah,
to.
totally. And you know what's funny? I'm going to answer it the same way so many colleagues answered it. I was at a conference in December and I just like walked around with a microphone and I was like, "Hey, did you know that fertility rates are massively on a decline? What do you think is the cause?"
Uh-huh.
And almost like 99% of people, the doctors at this conference, answered with yes, and it's because of the toxins. So
Mm,
there's this general like understanding that
yeah.
toxins are a major factor,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
there are so many toxins and it can get overwhelming very quickly with the
Yes.
toxin situation. But
Yes.
I think outside of toxins, I think that we also have just a inability to handle stress the way that our bodies need to handle the stress.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not our fault necessarily. I'm putting that in quotes for those of you that can't see us. Uh, it's not really a fault so much, right? Like we look at stress and we say, "Oh, do I need to quit my job? Do I need to
Right.
like what am I doing that's causing the stress?"
Right.
And I think there is the degree of internal stress, which we can put toxins into that as well. It's all the things that our body has to deal with that either help it to function optimally or move it away from optimal and cause dysfunction. So it could be that internal stress and it could be the external stress that is work and life and partnerships and friendships and whatever, like all the
Mm-hmm.
other stressors.
Mm-hmm.
But I also think that in the middle of those two is how we respond to our external stressors. And it's sort of an internal and it's sort of an external. And we, most of us, are really not effectively responding to that external stress
Mm-hmm.
in a way that puts us into reproductive mode.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm working on a book. And that's the
Awesome.
thesis of my book is essentially like we, especially as women, have developed in a way that we're trying to live the masculine template in our
Mm-hmm.
feminine bodies.
Mm-hmm.
And creation of life, as well as other things, is housed in this feminine energy, which
Mm-hmm.
is ultimately creation.
Mm-hmm.
So when we're trying to create from that masculine energy, we're really creating more stress in our bodies because that's not our template.
Mm-hmm.
We need a new template for being in the world as feminine women that are badasses doing badass things and have all the things that we want to do and there's no template for that.
Mm-hmm.
There was a template for quote unquote feminine back in the day, like the housewife that cooks and
Mm-hmm.
cleans and takes care of the kids and all the things. But where's the template for the badass woman that's a CEO that also wants to have a family, that also wants to have an amazing partnership, that, like all of those things just
Yes.
are not something that we know how to balance in our
Mm-hmm.
in our bodies yet.
Mm-hmm.
And the only way we know how to do that is the to-do lists and the control and the energy of like, how do I make
Do.
shit happen?
Mm-hmm. Just doing,
And
constantly doing.
and that's the antithesis of fertility energy. So
Yeah. 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 That makes, I love that so much. And I mean, again, you're speaking my language. Like I just did a 3-day workshop talking about cycle syncing and we're working productivity into your business. And I'm like, this is it. I mean, this is the conversation. And I'm excited that you're writing a book about it. I mean, this is a huge conversation. And I don't think it's talked about enough because I just love that answer so much because I think we can look at, the reasons for infertility. And yeah, I agree that the toxin thing is a big deal. I agree with that too. But I resonate so much with the conversation about us like fitting ourselves into this masculine construct. And that's not how we're meant to exist because we're not tiny men, by the way, everybody. We're not. So I love that. Yeah,
Yes.
that is
Yeah.
so good. I love that. What do you think are, just on that same note, as we're wrapping up here? I have so many more questions, but I'm going to try to control it here, rein it in. What do you think are the biggest steps for us to take to start heading in that direction?
Mm. To embracing more of that
Mm-hmm.
feminine.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I think you said quite a few of them. I think first is realizing we are not tiny men.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's the realization that we trying to fit ourselves into a mold that wasn't created for us is doing us so much harm,
Mm-hmm.
in more ways than we even know yet, is my suspicion. So
Yeah.
that's the first thing. The
Mm-hmm.
second is realizing that our cycle is a way in which we can really harmonize with our body and be in tune with what's in our energy to do at the time that we are in. I don't know
Mm-hmm.
if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Mm-hmm.
like depending on where we are in the cycle, it
Right.
dictates what we should quote unquote do
Right.
in the world
Yes.
as a result.
Right.
And if we can really, and for women, lots of women have asked me this, like, what if I don't have a cycle? What if I'm in menopause? What if
Right.
I'm perimenopausal, right? Then
Right.
you can sync to the moon
The
as
moon. Yeah.
another way
Mm-hmm.
to keep a rhythm.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe that that is the start of being able to embrace more of our natural energy
Totally.
and harmonize our hormones. And yeah, so
Mhm.
I'm on board with that.
Yeah.
I've also been playing around with how this applies into business, how this
Hmm.
applies. We have a team of people that I like we're playing around with, like, how do we sync our schedules with
Yeah.
our cycles
Yeah.
and what happens if we
Yeah.
do that.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're playing around with it.
That's so good.
And I think the third one is really to understand that if we can't do anything else, at least at the minimum, slowing down enough once a day for like 2 minutes to breathe and just like connect to our bodies. Because being men, we're mostly like up
Up
here,
here.
right?
Hmm.
Yeah, everything's heady,
Yep.
everything's in the head.
Yep. Yep.
So even 2 minutes of like dropping into our uterus and being like, how does it feel today? How are you
Hmm.
feeling? How are you doing?
Hmm.
Can be transformational. So without doing a ton else, just like 2 minutes of energy to the rest of your body can do wonders.
Yeah, I love that. Those are such good tools. I love that so much. And yeah, I mean, the cycle syncing stuff it's a powerful tool. And it's so, I mean, really, it's such a simple, I feel like it's such a simple concept. Like it's not a complicated concept, but it's just one of those that I think we overlook. I mean, I guess overlook or underestimate just like you said. What better way to tune into your feminine body than your feminine hormonal cycle? Like, I mean, it's the concept is simple and it
It
makes
makes so
sense.
much
Yeah, it
sense.
makes sense.
Yeah.
But it's like, yeah, I mean, I think there's just so much conditioning that we have to be plucked from, for us to like let go of the masculine construct and the doing and all that, that I think that's what makes it harder, but makes it hard. But it is such a simple concept, like, and it makes sense. So I love that. I just love all of that. Okay, so I love this conversation so much. Like, we're all on the same page with all this, and I agree with everything you're saying. So I have one more question I want to ask you as wrapping up. Before I do that, can you let everybody know where they can find out more about you? For anyone listening who's dealing with fertility issues, or you have friends or family, go check out Dr. Mama. So let everybody know where they can find out more about you.
Sure. So our website is holisticfertilityinstitute.com. You can also reach out to me on Instagram at Holistic Fertility Doctor. And we do have a podcast called Egg Meets Sperm for anyone that just wants to listen and learn and follow along with all the amazing work that's happening in this fertility space.
Yeah, so good. And y'all definitely go check out her podcast because there's a lot of episodes, and then there's like little quick tips, little bite-sized tips and stuff. It's really good. It's awesome.
And
So
Hope was on that episode. Lots of great reviews for that one.
Thanks. I'm so glad. I'm so glad it was fun. Okay, the last question I want to ask you, the question I like to ask everybody, what do you think is the most important thing you can do to live with purpose?
Oh, that's an interesting question. I would answer that with intuition. I think like accessing our intuition and being in alignment with what our spirit is guiding us to do. And I think we all have trained ourselves not to trust it. So little baby steps into reconnecting with our inner guidance. And whatever that means for people. I know some people are about praying and that approach, but in whatever way it shows up for you, follow your guidance, follow your intuition.
Yes. All right. Those are perfect words to close on because, I mean, I've talked about intuition enough on this show. Everybody's like, okay, more on intuition. But I mean, yes, preach, girl. So thank you so much for this. Thanks so much for spending time and bringing us such an insightful conversation on fertility. This is like a whole new conversation, and I loved it.
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. Thanks for listening to Hopeful and Wholesome, y'all. If you found value in this week's episode, please subscribe on iTunes or wherever you listen to your podcast and leave a review to let me know what you thought. I'd love to know what you find useful in these episodes so I can know how to provide the most value I can to my listeners. And if you have topics you'd like to know more about, I'd love to hear those as well. So shoot me a message on Instagram, Facebook, or LinkedIn. It's at TheHopePedraza, or you can visit my website, hopefulandwholesome.com. Thanks, y'all.